Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we help construction executives learn faster and lead better. In today's episode, you will learn about innovation, decreasing the resistance to change, and overall change management from a leader in our industry who works for the leading company when it comes to AI, technology adoption, and thinking differently about everything, including predictive analytics. And I'm referring to Mr. Evan McKee, who's the Chief Operating Officer here in the Texas region for Suffolk, the nationwide company who is leading the way when it comes to data collection and predictive analytics. Evan also shares insights about mentorship and what it means to be a caring leader in a tough industry that demands completing jobs on time, under budget. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Evan McKee, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
This is by far one of the most unique settings we've had. And considering we're on, what are we on, the
51st floor, yeah.
That's also amazing. But for someone who's a construction junkie and looking out and see real time. So maybe for folks that are not seeing this video, what is on these screens around us here? And maybe how does that tie into the culture at Suffolk?
Yeah, so we're in our collab, our collaboration space here. You know, as you can see behind me, these screens, we've got live look at ongoing work on one of our projects out at DFW. We have ability to look at several projects, not just here at DFW, but across the nation. We've got our digital planning board. So that we call it our huddle board. It's digital pool planning. Folks can collaborate here live in person through pre-construction and then construction. Behind that logo, that wall opens up, and that's a virtual room where you can present virtual design with the goggles, et cetera. So the idea is that we're practicing what we preach. We're tech forward. We believe that there's a place for technology in this industry. You know, I don't think that construction at large is known for being the most technologically advanced industry there is.
That's correct.
And we're doing something to change that. It goes well beyond, these four walls, but this is where I would say the rubber meets the road every day.
What does it say about the Suffolk culture when you have this level of transparency? And I also know you guys share this with your clients.
Certainly.
What does that say about you guys?
You hit on a key word, being transparent, right? We have a duty to provide a top-notch service, execute with excellence, and to do it in the open. You know, you've probably seen the meme where like the little dinghy behind the boat was base contract and the big yacht was called change order and all that. And that's yes. A bad rap that contractors get, right? And so I think when you strive to be the best and stay the best, open, honest work and collaboration and transparency is key to delivering in that way. Having done this for 25 years, experiencing other contractors, both internally and witnessing externally, Suffolk's tremendously unique in that way. We're out there and we're not afraid to be.
Yeah. Maybe let's just take us back. You come from a family, a multi-generational family of constructors who've been involved in some really unique and historic buildings. Maybe give the audience just a little bit of context about how you grew up, the stories that you heard, and what drew you into the industry originally.
Yeah, so I would say that family history is really what piqued my interest in construction from a young age. My great-grandfather started a construction company in El Paso, Texas in the teens and really grew to be quite sizable. You mentioned some pretty historic buildings that they constructed, Los Alamos National Laboratory, DFW Airport. They did work at Hickam Field adjacent to Pearl Harbor and were actively working on that site when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. So, hearing those stories, hearing my grandfather talk about that and his experiences that's really what captivated my interest, right? And by the time I was of age and out of school, the McKee Company was no longer active as the McKee Company. So I was, in a way, I was fortunate. I got to pay my own way. I think if McKee Company was still around, I would have been the only college graduate pushing a broom. Because that's kind of how my family was.
Sure.
Like you had to do it from the ground up. Perhaps it was a good thing for me and for my career that I didn't start out with the leather gloves on. But my dad always had an interest, though he didn't go into the business, and so it was always something that we talked about, and it was pretty active. My dad and brother and I built our house.
You did?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We lived out kind of outside of El Paso, a little bit rural, and
Is it still standing?
Yes, it is still standing. It is still standing.
As far as I know, it is still standing. Yes.
Well, as of this summer, the last time I was there. How's that?
That's amazing. So maybe I'll switch directions here just a little bit.
Sure.
I was reading, it was the October 22nd edition of the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
On the cover and in the back of one section was talking about OpenAI. And as they are getting more funding, I did a double take. Not only are they getting increments of investments of the $100 billion variety from Microsoft and NVIDIA and companies like that, Broadcom, they are planning 7 trillion is the vision with a T for not only the chip fabs to support that growth, but also the data centers for it. Let's just set aside what $1 trillion actually looks like, right? Which is hard for, I think, at least for me, to really understand. So we know AI is changing everything. I'm always trying to separate what's the hype, what is my personal experience, but Suffolk is the leader in the construction industry when it comes to technology. I heard John Fish mention on a podcast, as AI emerges, we want to be the leader behind it, understanding how we can bring the construction industry forward. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis, you leading the organization here in DFW in Texas?
Yeah, I would say that John's a visionary, right? And 15 years ago, he understood the value of what our data and the clean data lake. You've heard us use that term, but really AI models are only as good as the information that they're fed with, right? And so John understood from very early on the value of that, and that planting that seed's really starting to, that tree's now bearing fruit. It's really remarkable. We have developed predictive models across our business, right? What I'm most excited about, what I'm most passionate about is we've now have rolled out a predictive safety model that's really able to evaluate projects on a project level basis where those jobs are and be able to say, hey, this job has some of these markers of the thousands of data points that we're evaluating. We need to focus on this. We need to put some safety resources into it because there's an incident coming if we don't pay attention to it. So what that looks like is % complete on the job, not just the hours of overtime that subs are working, but how long have they been working that overtime?
Okay.
Right. And there's about 30 different criteria or data points that it looks at, and then it evaluates it across all of our jobs. And at any given time, we have 100 to 120 jobs that are active across the country. And it can say, hey, this week it might be these 6 jobs or these 10 jobs that if we don't do something, they're going to experience an incident. And it is accurate at a greater than 85% rate that an incident will happen within the next 4 weeks if we don't do something. Now, conversely, the other side of that is the jobs that our predictive model isn't flagging, it's accurate with about an 80% rate, right? So it's saying this job is operating safely. It's not triggering some of these things.
Okay.
And only about 20 of those are experiencing incidences, and they're relatively minor, right? So they aren't, we haven't been running for months and months with subs on overtime and wearing folks out because that's when those things happen. So it's very exciting to me. Again, 25 years in the business, most important, people often ask me, like, what do you lose sleep about? I lose sleep about the safety of the folks that we're partnered with that are out there doing it every day, right? I'm not here without them. Yeah. And I recognize that. And it's really critically important. It's a moral obligation that we provide the safest environment for them. So if we have the tools at our disposal to do so, we ought to. Yep. Probably could go on for an hour about that, and AI and where we're using it. I mean, our business analytics, how, is this the right job to chase? Have we experienced jobs in our past that are similar to this that have not been successful for whatever reason? And we're able to look back and really let our data at our disposal help guide kind of where we go.
I'm going to forget the name of it. It was Blaze. There's a horse named Blaze, Sherlock Holmes. And the punchline was largely like, how did Sherlock figure it out? And it was like, well, the horse was stolen, but it was the dog that didn't bark, meaning there's these watchdogs, and why didn't they bark?
Okay.
And I think about that is because it's, how do you think about as a leader the things that don't happen, and how do we value that? And as we've got these predictive models and you think about safety, for some folks, it might seem like, okay, well, like nothing happened. Therefore, how do we measure the ROI? How do you as a leader really kind of celebrate the things that don't happen? Or how do you tell a story that doesn't get lost in the weeds with AI and technology and clear data lakes, not a clear data link. Clear data lake. How do you kind of share those and celebrate those wins when kind of what we're celebrating is the thing that doesn't happen?
Our responsibility doesn't come and go with whether or not a predictive model flags something, right? So there's work still yet to be done, right? To ensure that we're safe. In fact, those projects that aren't getting notified are the ones that are really doing it quite well, and they're to be celebrated. They're recognized regularly, right? I mean, we have monthly safety meetings where we talk about, hey, this yet again, job ABC had a clean month without incident, and that's to be celebrated. Conversely, say the job that does get, hey, if you don't do something, you're headed to it. Well, the goal is prove this model wrong. Right? Prove the model wrong. And that also is to be celebrated because, hey, something was going on. You were at a stage of the job where historically we've experienced more incidences on similar projects and you prevented it. So you won, right? And that is just as important, I think. We have safety awards and safety recognitions all the time. That doesn't necessarily separate us from the pack, but the ability to predict does. That if that adequately answers the question.
That is, no, that's useful. How do you make sure, and this number may or may not be accurate, but on the podcast I listened to, John said, we've got 29 data analysts in Boston. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I thought it was over 30, but I'll go with his 29.
Okay. So we got all these folks there. There are many companies that are really hardworking, smart people. And as they try to gather more smart people, more data, try to do more predictive things, we have situations where, well, we have the ivory tower or we have the mothership, whatever we call headquarters. And here we are. We're out here local, boots on the ground. How do you make sure that there is still not these silos? How do we make sure there's this collaboration that says, hey, we're working together. However, the data says one thing, here's what we're seeing. And how do we work together to make sure we're really fostering not only accountability, but also the ability for us to enjoy working together?
Yeah, sure. So I think that it starts by addressing skepticism, right? Because you've got superintendents and project managers and project engineers and field engineers, these folks that are the front line, right? And they're working so hard. And then you have somebody come and say, well, the computer says, right? So there's some level of skepticism built in. And so, as we've tested this, we've proven it out. So the data also isn't lying, right? We're accurate at a greater than 85% rate. And then when you realize it's like, hey, you're not showing up on a list. You're not being told on. We're trying to help you out. And it's a lot about the approach. I could go out to a job site and say, hey, you're really messing this up. Or I can say, hey, let's get together. Let's look at where we think our risk factors lie. Like perhaps you've got a dozen subcontractors on a job site and all of them have what we would consider a reasonable ratio of supervision to journeymen and laborers. But you've got one whose ratio's gotten a little bit out of whack because maybe they're trying to make up time. Let's go focus on that sub and let's partner with them to help them make sure that their folks go home safe every day, right? We put a sign on our job sites that says, nothing you do here today will be more important than going home to your family, right? And we're trying to live that. So I think a lot of it is in the approach and how you present it to somebody. We're not in trouble, right? We're trying to be better. And if you can get that mindset, the collaboration comes pretty easily.
You mentioned the word testing. I was fascinated to learn about, well, you got a venture capital fund. You have a separate vertical that's on design. You have a separate vertical on technology. You have to pilot these things. And one thing as when we come in from the outside and we help companies in a consultancy role is sometimes the hardest thing we have to get over is this entrenched belief that if we say something might not work, well, this could be my livelihood. This could be my next paycheck. This could be my next promotion. This could be the visibility and the reputation of this whole project we have in this new region. How do you foster this sense of experimentation and knowing things won't work? And that's part of the innovation journey.
Sure it is.
When for a lot of people, they've been raised and they've been successful and promoted in life, in their careers, because they haven't made mistakes and they've made sure everything works every time.
Okay. All due respect, that's a little bit old school thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not my grandfather's construction company.
Yeah.
Okay. And part of our culture is that we really promote getting out there, being innovative, doing something new. Our technology vertical is the nation's largest investor in startup technology, construction specific technology startups. I mean, companies that are out there all over the place now, that everybody's heard of Open Space. That was, we were the seed funding behind that. We're not ashamed to be the ones out there trying it. I'm going to lean on John again, his quote. He says, we want to be America's contractor, and nobody else is bold enough to say that, and we are. And he's willing to make the investment to test and let people be as good as they can. We have to build efficiency into this industry. We face challenges on the labor side with workforce. We retire at a much higher rate than bring new folks into the industry, right?
Sure.
I don't think that there's any hiding that. On the construction management side, it's the same. People are looking for good people all the time. And one way to address that is to build efficiencies into your process and how you do it. And so we've been very purposeful about that. Not everybody that applies to Suffolk Technologies gets that startup funding, but there's value out there to be found, and we're on board. We want to be the tip of the spear.
Other than, you mentioned safety and kind of AI and that being your passion, is there anything else maybe here locally that we haven't talked about in this region, kind of around Texas, et cetera, that you would say, like, I'll give you an example of something bold that we're doing that really differentiates Suffolk? Because one thing I find myself saying over and over is when we are working with clients or we're talking to prospects is our industry is just filled with a lot of websites that might have a little different color scheme and a different logo, but a lot of the same bullet points. And I'm saying, hey, how are we standing out? Especially now when jobs are tougher, some jobs have canceled, the market's just a little bit softer and a lot of uncertainty. My question is, like, how are you differentiating yourself? What might be something that you'd say, hey, let me give you an example here locally that you're really excited about, that is bold, that is kind of true differentiation?
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about the technology and safety, and I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention that our Suffolk design folks are involved in developing AI models that can help push design. Our schedulers are doing the same thing. It's all pretty remarkable. I can't say that this is local because we do this nationally, but I see the impact here locally because that's where my operation is. Suffolk is so intentional about our training and educating folks that come out of college, out of the university with a construction-related or engineering-related degree, and really making them valuable team members really quite quickly, right? There's the industry is always, I say always, largely been on-the-job training. Well, we can support that and we can accelerate that. We've got field-accelerated startup training. We call it FAST. We've got our Career Start program. It's a 2-year rotation where recent college graduates go through a field or a rotation, an office rotation, if you will, superintendent, project manager, and then an estimating rotation to really gain a firm grasp of this industry, right? And also understand where they want their career to go, right? You've kind of got to get that introduction. Those are things I think that from a talent standpoint really differentiate us. As far as, say, standing out with our owners, we have an owner dashboard that is full transparency. You're out there, and you're right. To quote Kramer, you're out there, and you're loving every minute of it. You can cut that.
We love Seinfeld's quote, so I'm with you 100%. I'm out there, baby.
Yeah.
We won't go into detail what the backstory in that episode is about, but I'm with you here. I'm with you.
But the truth is, again, it's so much our culture. It's about honest and full transparency. Transparency is a buzzword that a lot of people throw around. And if you haven't experienced transparency from your contractor, you probably don't know what you're missing. You come work with Suffolk, who's truly and honestly transparent, and you go, oh, now I understand what we're talking about, because you can get on, you can see where your estimates stand. You can get real-time data on your schedules, not just, overall, we're pretty good, but let's look at individual activities.
Right.
What does that mean? Wait a minute. Hey, Suffolk, your glazer's behind, whatever. What does that mean to us, right? That level of teamwork, open, honest collaboration honestly leads to more project success than maybe I've experienced ever in my career.
Has that changed how Suffolk has had to develop conflict management? And you mentioned the word approach to kind of skepticism and the approach to the guys out in the field. For folks that maybe because we didn't have the data or it was a different culture back then as things have changed, have you had to think more as a leader about, okay, when we are transparent and things happen, that's why we've got jobs and that's how we manage it. And we're experts and we'll address that, to have these communications when someone does have full transparency and they're your client and they call up and they're demanding answers to things that are kind of in flux that we're solving. Have you had to train people differently or find different people, or I don't know, how has that changed over time?
I think that transparency actually aids in having that conversation.
Okay.
Right? It's 20 years ago, something would go wrong on the job. You spend a long time trying to figure it out. You come up with what you think is the best solution. You go talk to your owner or your architect and they go, no, right? And so you're taking 2 or 3 steps back. Whereas, look, everybody knows at the onset of whatever that challenge might be, right? Let's use the word opportunity, whatever that opportunity might be.
Sure.
And it's bringing all the key stakeholders to the table. And I would argue that we're navigating those challenges and coming up with solutions faster because we're initiating the conversation earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's a different type of person.
Okay.
It's helping those folks who haven't come from this background,
Right.
To understand that, again, this isn't a fault.
Yeah.
It's an approach. It's a mindset. We've used the word culture so much here, but that's a whole lot of our culture.
Well, it has me thinking about this line that I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's from Danny Meyer, who's a restaurateur, founder of Shake Shack.
Okay.
He said the difference between service and hospitality. Service is the technical delivery of what you promise. It's the scope of work. It's just doing that. And he said the hospitality that he hopes he delivers in his restaurants is the fact that you feel that I'm on your side. And not only am I doing the technical delivery of what I promised, but I want to know how you feel about this process, good, bad, or otherwise, because we're in this experience together. And I've been thinking about that recently, and John Fish said the number one word that he thinks about when he thinks about leadership is caring. Take that any way you want as you think about kind of your leadership style and how you've changed and grown in your leadership career. What word kind of stands out in your mind about what it's like for people to follow you?
What I hope it's like for people to follow me is that, somewhat of the servant leadership idea, right? Get in the trenches, help, don't just say fix it. John uses that word caring in a lot of contexts. And I think that would apply to, kind of what I think about here. John uses that top to bottom in our organization. We have an employee-funded charitable organization that helps folks that are the larger Suffolk family through hard times. It may be a laborer for a subcontractor that's come across hard times and will step in financially and help out. He lives what he speaks. That's a leadership style. It brings people into that. So I would like to think, I would hope that some of that is my same style as well, that, I'll get into the details and I'll get mud on my boots with you when the time comes. So caring's a good word for it. Certainly, for me, I would think active participation as a leader is important, and hopefully that's the style that one might think of when they think of me.
Cool. If you could have one leadership discussion, and this isn't a gotcha question, but we did not cover this. This just kind of came up. So we're going with on the fly.
Yeah.
You could have dinner with any leader, living or dead, and have like a couple hours, just talk about leadership, lessons, insights. Anyone living or dead, who would you choose as your leadership dinner partner?
Wow, just one. That's hard. I might say Dwight Eisenhower.
Oh, okay.
One, because I really like history and military history.
Okay.
But two, talk about being put in an impossible situation and tons of different personalities to navigate and an objective that was quite literally life or death for millions of people. And thank God I've never been in that situation. But how in the world and his rise was meteoric, right? I mean, his rise through the ranks was really quick. And so I think that, God, there would be such lessons to be learned from someone like that who had navigated the most impossible situation, right? Nothing that I have faced or will face will compare.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, I heard just somebody was just talking about like the Battle of the Bulge and just how gruesome that was. They said the X factor is when you are a rational thinker and a rational leader, and you are thinking, if I do this and they do that, right? And then you just realize, well, the opponent we're going against is not rational at all.
Right.
And part of what they're doing is driven by chaos. And I'm like, it's interesting. I never really thought about that, because it's one thing to map out when if you're competing against smart people in the market. It's something completely different if part of the game is the chaos. That is part of what we're trying to do here. It's just a whole different thing.
Sure. A little bit of organized chaos out there.
Right. So Evan, I'm watching the time here and I appreciate your generosity and sharing your insights and time here. One thing I wanted to talk about was you were passionate and articulate talking about purpose in young people and understanding that this kind of quote that actually is in my vernacular, which is, it's just the sticks and bricks, right? Maybe go into a little bit of detail on how you talk about that and how you get people to really understand what we do really matters and is building for the long term, but also on an individual level, hopefully finding purpose in kind of whatever project they're on.
Sure. So I'm going to say I have a purpose moment in my career. So I'm going to go back about 10 years.
Okay.
I was a senior project manager on a radiation oncology cancer treatment center and was literally on the job site in the job trailer when I got the call that my brother had been diagnosed with cancer. And I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing this incomplete cancer center that I know is going to be the newest, the best, just awesome facility, wishing like, man, I wish I had had this done in time, right? My brother's fine, so I can tell this story with a smile on my face. But fast forward, that building opens and a colleague, a guy that's in the HVAC business here in town, tells me the story about how when he was in his mid-30s, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. His life was saved in a building I built, right? And that has real impact. And you understand that the buildings that you build matter, that people's lives are lived there. And I don't care if you're passionate about a hospitality project or multifamily housing or senior or retail project. People's lives are lived in these facilities. And so you talked about the younger generation. I think back early 2000s when I was young in this industry, I was excited to build something just because it was a mark on the land, right? It was not a landmark, not to be confused. But it certainly could outlast me on this earth. And that was such an exciting notion. And then, I kind of went into this phase where I was just building and I was just living a process. And so it's important that our folks understand that, and part of my mentorship of younger folks, what we do matters. University buildings where the next generation is educated, laboratories where the next life-saving discovery is found, data centers where who knows what's processed in there, right? And that's something we all experience. It's not just sticks and bricks anymore. Our generation learned that, look, this is sticks and bricks. Anybody can do it, right? I can do it too. Well, you know what? It's a lot more than that. And I think that the truly successful folks in our industry have a reason other than their paycheck to do what they do.
Yep.
They love it. They love the outcome. They're passionate about it. They understand how important this is.
Yep.
Mentorship's an interesting thing. I myself am subject to it. I realize there's this reverse going on in mentorship, right? When I graduated college, I didn't have a cell phone. The iPhone hadn't been invented. Computers were slow paperweights. This next generation is so in touch and so capable, and right that I like, hey, come here, show me how to do something, right? And I see our superintendents now experiencing that. We've got folks that are tremendous builders, understand how the building process has to come together, and are now leaning on our younger generation, for the reverse mentorship. How does this technology tie into what I'm doing and how to build that? It's really dynamic. It's really very interesting. I love that we have folks that have been in this industry 35 and 40 years, longer than I have, who are seeing that now and are leaning on our younger folks because they bring tremendous value to the team. So all of that kind of wrapped up together is the why. It's the purpose, right?
Love it. Maybe last question here.
Sure.
I'm a book nerd.
Okay.
Whenever I'm meeting another leader, I'm just curious, is there any book that somebody had suggested to you or you read or stands out in your mind that said maybe at a certain point in time of your career, or I don't know, one book that you said, yeah, this is, as I think about my leadership journey,
one book,
this stands out.
I've read some good books. Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You read this whole book, there's a whole lot in there. And I took one thing out of that has changed my career. And it really was about the importance of listening and how to listen and not to be thinking about what you're going to say in response as somebody's talking. So many folks live life so fast that they're moving on to the next thing. And it's like, wait a minute, just give your time. Yeah. Listen to the question Bradley's asking and answer it, right? Don't think of the response before he gets done. There are so many that are good out there. I've read a handful. I can't say I've read them all. But that, I would say, because if I'm going to put it out there, that was a weakness of mine. I was always trying to move on to the next thing. I was always trying to live so fast. And beyond just listening, that's been really helpful in everyday life and work life.
That's wonderful. Well, this has come up on a few. So kind of what's old is new again.
Yeah.
So as we're thinking about this next generation of builders at Oklahoma State University, they have a soft skills course and they go through Dale Carnegie's book. Yeah. And I had the honor of stepping into a class and talking to them about it. And that was one of the things that stood out to them. And there is that recognition about, man, so much of our success is dependent on, we know this, is relationships and earning trust and listening to people and having people say, you know what, I like that person. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though this might not be something I don't really want to do. And that's such a big part of leadership on the job site, let alone kind of the management side. So awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Really enjoyed talking to you both in our pre-call and here. And congratulations on all your success. And I will say that I view you and Suffolk flagged because I do think in a very real sense, you do have an entire industry who's looking towards Suffolk to say, what are they doing and how are they in the leading edge of this? That's what every industry needs, is someone to go and say, we are willing to be the leader and we're going to take some arrows in the back, but we know what we're in store for. But otherwise things don't change. And you have a lot of people saying things like, well, this is the way we've always done it. Anyway, a long-winded way to say thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you very much. Again, it was my pleasure. Loved having you all up to the office here, and my, really honored that you'd have me join you. So thank you much.
All right then, friend, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation and the insights shared from Mr. Evan McKee with Suffolk Construction. If you are interested in doubling down, learning a little bit more from a higher level, I would strongly recommend listening to episode 13 of the podcast Good Dirt that featured the founder of Suffolk, John Fish. And the last thing I'd recommend you to do is, whether it's a Google alert or find something that can track Suffolk, what they're doing with data and innovation and artificial intelligence, I firmly believe is going to help move our entire industry into the future faster. So keeping an eye on what they're doing and how they're thinking about it and the investments that they're making in technology, I believe will make you more informed and increase the probability that you can take some of these efforts and infuse them into your own company. As always, my friend, thank you for listening. We will close out with our leadership mantra. You are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.